Hello and welcome to my 300 plus subscriber special video I decided to do in gratitude for those of you who got me past 300 subscribers on my silly little YouTube channel. After a bunch of thought of thinking what I can do, I figure one of the easiest and maybe interesting things that someone might enjoy is taking a bit of a detailed tour of my bookshelves. This will be a three-part video, first dealing with the bookshelf in front of you. There's two more sections of bookshelves to get through, and each one has approximately 4 tiers apiece. So let's begin with this one. Top shelf. As you can see, at the far end of this shelf is my Delta Green books, which are not that numerous, surprisingly enough, considering how much that I enjoy Delta Green. As you can see, there's the Impossible Landscapes campaign, the Agent's Handbook, and the Handler's Guide, I should say, along with The Fall of Delta Green by Pelgrane Press, and a couple other things here. Static Protocol, I won't slide that one out. That is the GM screen. PX Poker Night. Need to Know, essentially the starter set or the quick start for Delta Green. And then that's it, to be perfectly honest. So, yeah, I mean, there'll be more coming because I did back that rather large Kickstarter that came out at the beginning of this year, I think it was, or last year. Anyways, yes, so there you go. That's the first part of the section, the Delta Green books. Impossible Landscapes I have not read. I'm currently involved in the campaign being run by Bud from Bud's RPG Review, excuse me. And I think we're about 3/4 of the way through it. I could be wrong, but the primary reason why I have not read it is I do not want to spoil it. Excuse me. It is one of those things where, if at all possible, enjoy it as a player first, and then run it if you see fit, because you will spoil yourself as a player if you run it firsthand. So, and of course, next to that is The Fall of Delta Green, dealing with the fall of the organization taking place around the time of Vietnam, utilizing the gumshoe system. Gumshoe may not be for everyone, but even if you aren't a fan of gumshoe but a fan of Delta Green, I highly recommend getting it because the information inside is just as valuable as any other of the Delta Green books, and I guarantee you can pull stuff from there to utilize it in Delta Green proper if you see fit. Next up, we have quite the variety of Call of Cthulhu. I'm just going to slide this over a little bit more. There we go. And you'll see that, yeah, it's probably easy to see that Call of Cthulhu is one of my favorite RPGs, as the collection here kind of runs the gambit of most of the things presented for 7th edition by Chaosium. But not only that, there's a couple other things mixed in there. You can see that there is the Investigator's Handbook, the Keeper Rulebook. Next to that is the Masks of Nyarlathotep slipcase, which I'm currently running with people here locally in California and having a good time doing that. They are currently in Shanghai, which some of you may think, great, it's almost over. Well, no, they decided to go to Shanghai after New York, and therefore I had to scramble, make a few changes to keep the pace of the campaign going, but nonetheless is going well. So looking forward to see where they want to go next out of the standard context of the game, but that remains to be seen. Next to that, we have several of the smaller additions from Chaosium, a lot of their anthology and collection of adventures and whatnot. We have, Gateways to Terror here. We have Deadlight and Other Dark Turns, Doors to Darkness. Next to that, we have their most recent solitaire adventure, Alone Against the Tide, Terra Australis, and Cthulhu Dark Ages, Grand Grimoire. The old version of the Call of Cthulhu starter set, there's going to be a new one coming out soon. Malleus Monstrorum, the Call of Cthulhu Monster Manual, I guess you can call it that. Sandy Peterson's Guide to Lovecraftian Horrors, which is something that I like to utilize in regards to if I need to give a visual representation of the monsters. I just like the artwork in there so much. It's a little bit more ephemeral than some of the others. Nothing wrong with the artwork in any of the other Call of Cthulhu books. Just seem to prefer that one a little bit more. Continuing on, we have the wonderful Harlem Unbound, Berlin, The Wicked City, one of my current favorites. I'm almost finished reading through that one in preparation of a interview that I'm doing on Titterpigs with Keith, and we are going to be speaking with David Larkins regarding not just Berlin, but also Pendragon. Continuing on, we have the Eldritch New England Holiday Collection. If you're not familiar with that, look it up. Would be a wonderful addition and a different take on role-playing Call of Cthulhu adventures within the Lovecraftian mythos. We have Sun Spies, New Tales of the Miskatonic Valley, the second edition, which is the one that has not only a variety of wonderful authors in there, but that also is the one that includes Seth Skorkowski's Call of Cthulhu adventure, Ripples from Carcosa, an older set of adventures focusing primarily on Hastur, the Yellow King, and Carcosa. There we have Alone Against the Flames, which is more of the solitaire adventures. And let's see, can we get this one out? There we go. Alone Against the Frost, another solitaire adventure for Call of Cthulhu. And what do we have here? We have The Derelict. And I believe that one was free. I don't remember exactly if it was or not. Continuing on, we have the Mansions of Madness, another collection of adventures. Stuff between that is The Dare, a wonderful, wonderful Halloween-themed scenario. Highly recommend picking that up if you're looking for a game to run on Halloween itself. Just slide over a little bit more. Pulp Cthulhu, if you are looking to Indiana Jones up your Call of Cthulhu game. Next up, kind of squeezed in here, is Cthulhu Britannica, Avalon, the county of Somerset. These are a grouping of Cthulhu Britannica books that I picked up at a sale. Well, not all of them. Stuffed in between there is the Shadow over Providence, another wonderful, wonderful Call of Cthulhu scenario by John Hook and Matt Ryan. John Hook is a fantastic author of Call of Cthulhu adventures. And then there's the other one. There's the Cthulhu Britannica proper. This is the core rulebook for that. I would like to say that I could tell you a little bit about it, but I can't because I haven't read it yet. Then we have the Call of Cthulhu Alphabet by Goodman Games. Learn your ABCs along with Lovecraftian monsters and other horrors. What better way is there to learn? We have Scritch Scratch, which I think this was also provided for free. I think I was at a convention where the keeper who was running the games was giving handouts, was giving adventures out for free, and that was one of them. Stuffed in between here, we have the handouts for the ever popular and ever wonderful Highway of Blood by Alex Giat and Ian Christensen. Friends, and also highly talented and one of my favorite Call of Cthulhu adventure authors. They have also continued on with Carnival of Madness and their Grindhouse series. This is Volume 1. Volume 2, I believe, is not in print yet, but hopefully it's close. And then my personal favorite, Highway of Blood. 1970s Grindhouse horror mixed in with Call of Cthulhu mythos, monstrosities, muscle cars, the 70s swagger, and just a wonderful, wonderful sandbox adventure for all to enjoy. Highly malleable. You can make it in most era, but the 1970s is the modern era it's written for, and you can do so much with it. And then kind of scoot you over here. So more recently, the Call of Cthulhu Classic Prop Set, which accompanies both the Call of Cthulhu smaller box and the Call of Cthulhu larger box of the 40th anniversary Classic Edition reprint that I was part of the Kickstarter for. Did a video for all of these individually, and fantastic. So very happy with how those turned out. And we'll just kind of slide this over a little bit more as we reach the end of the top shelf. There we are. And my absolute favorite, well, I can't say absolute because there's other books on here that may arm wrestle for that position, but currently my absolute favorite fantasy-based RPG, Dungeon Crawl Classics, As you can see, this is my road core book. Been through a lot with the electrical tape holding the binding together. This is my softback core rule book, which I use either at home or in person. And we have the America's Survival Guide, a Gonzo-esque apocalyptic setting, utilizing the Dungeon Crawl Classics rule set. The Dungeon Crawl Classics, the Chain Coffin, the famous, not well famous for them, but the well done and famous for Dungeon Crawl Classics. Excuse me. Pardon me. Adventure based in a fantasized Appalachian Mountains setting. If I'm not mistaken, we have the Sailors of the Star of the Sea, the classic funnel. This is their special edition print. The Mutant Crawl Classics role-playing game core rule set. And I'm not going to pull these out because there's quite a lot to get through, but these are primarily a mix of Dungeon Crawl Classics adventures. Those who are familiar with it, there's far too many to list here, but I will highlight a couple things here. First off, oh wow, that belongs in another section. We'll put you where you belong later. Where is it? Here we are. So in regards to Dungeon Crawl Classics, if you're going to run the game and you enjoy running it, you will find here something that is invaluable. This is the DCC reference sheet book. A lot of people know that Dungeon Crawl Classics utilizes a wide variety of tables, and those can be a bit of a pain when you're trying to find these things in the larger core rule book itself. But with that, they've kind of compressed some of the more important ones beyond a GM screen, and has printed out for your use. Very affordable. Highly recommend getting it. It will make your life a lot easier running it. And just because he's a friend of mine and this is my video, we've got Leopard Women of Venus. This is by Josh Burnett and Leighton Connor, two wonderful individuals. Josh this is one of the things that he kickstarted for ZineQuest a while ago. This focuses on the works of the Fletcher Hanks comic books. If you're not familiar with who that is, look it up. And keep an eye out for everything and anything Josh and Leighton do, usually under this moniker, JLB Polytechnic, but look them up individually. They both do individual works themselves under different headers, and you can definitely find their works just by searching for it. So let's set that over there. And then we will close the top shelf with the last few box sets I have here for Dungeon Crawl Classics. The Greatest Thieves in Lankmar, the Lankmar setting tournament that I recently acquired, the Dungeon Crawl Classics Lankmar setting box set, which is absolutely fantastic. The love, care, and attention that went into this in regards to Leiber's works of Fafhrd and Grey Mouser is superb, above and beyond any setting that I have seen so far. And I hope that love and attention carries over into their next box set that hopefully will be here by the end of the year, and that is the Dying Earth setting. And stuffed in between here, whoops, we're going to fall over. No. What do we have here? Oh, okay. I will also add this. Orcs High Octane Adventure. Third level for the Hubris world, which is Mike Evans' setting for Dungeon Crawl Classics by the wonderful DUI role-playing game company. This adventure is fantastic. It takes place on a train, high-paced, high-action, fast-moving, and mix that with the Dungeon Crawl Classics rule set, and you've got yourself an explosive con game. To be perfectly honest, I think this would run perfectly for a one-shot or a con game, and utilizes cards to detail a different aspects of the train that you're on, so it's replayable. Every game is going to be different. And then finally, we have Peril of the Purple Planet. This is another setting for adventure for Dungeon Crawl Classics. This is a wildly popular hex crawl. Very rare. Yes, you are, aren't you? But difficult to get a hold of. If you can find it for less than collector's prices, I highly recommend getting it. but hopefully someday it will be available for reprint. As far as Goodman Games is concerned, I know they've got a lot of other things, kind of up and coming, but hopefully this will be one of them that someday you'll be able to get, similar to the Chain Coffin in a hardback form. So there you go. That is the top shelf of the first section of this video. We will move down to the second shelf in a minute, so we will see you shortly. All right, welcome back. And this is the second shelf of the first tier of shelves I'll be doing for the 300 subscriber video, and continuing on. So the second shelf has quite a few of some Runequest books, as you can see. Not all of them are current edition. There's a mixture of previous editions and adaptations, I guess you can call it. Starting with the the Runequest Role-Playing in Glorantha slipcase. That is pretty much your all-in-one, one-stop shop as far as getting into the world of Runequest and Glorantha. It is, you literally can play for quite some time with just the information in this alone without having to purchase any of the other books. Not saying don't get them, get all of them. get every single one that you can. So continuing on, we will see probably the first of a few of some odd books for those with the keen eye, kind of wondering, what exactly is this? This right here, this is my Big Rebel printing from my own PDF. Chaosium, some time ago, they issued a reprinting of a lot of their older adventures and books for first edition Runequest, Big Rebel being one of them. I picked up a copy of the PDF before they provided the reprints, and decided to have it reprinted myself. The person who did it did an excellent job. I think it looks fantastic. Not saying that you shouldn't go through Chaosium. They do a wonderful reprint themselves. Here's an example of one from Chaosium. This is Troll Pack of the similar first edition setting, but as you can see, this is a softback, and the paper quality is not quite as good as I picked with Big Rebel, but both equally well done, and very happy with them both. Next up, we have 13th Age Glorantha, which is the Glorantha setting utilizing the 13th Age rule set, focusing more on, I think, kind of like the hero quest aspect of it all. You're bigger and bolder than what you primarily would be within the standard role-playing in Glorantha books, but it's a different pace, a different feel. Highly enjoy it, highly recommend it. It is definitely for those who are Glorantha files and who may not necessarily, play within the 13th Age world themselves, but like the rules. Continuing on, we have the Hero Quest Glorantha. This is no longer in print. This has become unavailable due to the naming of the book. Hero Quest going back to the owners of the board game. So this is going to be changing in the future if they do reissue it. I think is it Open Quest they're going to be using? Might be something else. I forget. But stuffed in between here, we have the Runequest Quick Start. This is definitely something if you just want to get your feet wet and see if Runequest is for you and you don't want to spend all the money of it. I believe $8 or $9 get you this, and by the end of it, you will know. You will definitely know if Runequest is for you. And this is the Game Master's Guide. This comes with the box set here. As you can see, it's fairly thick, so as mentioned, it does provide you with quite a bit of material to keep you busy with just the slipcase itself. The Smoking Ruin and Other Stories, a collection of adventures for Runequest. I haven't opened it yet. I hope to get to that someday. Maybe I will do a unwrapping video and peek through it. A rough A rough guide to glamour. This is more setting material for Runequest and Glorantha through the Johnstown I believe it is, yes. The Johnstown Compendium. And continuing on, we have the Glorantha source book. This is a compressed history of everything Glorantha. You will see a larger version of that if you already don't notice it to the right there. But as your adventuring into Glorantha continues and you find that the world is wonderfully evocative and deep and rich, this is where you should go to next to learn more about it. So reaching into here, we have Hearts in Glorantha, another set of books that I believe are no longer in print because they are, as you can see, under the HeroQuest license. So those are no longer available themselves. Pulling out here, we have the original printing of Cults of Terror. These are the, well, I guess evil-ish is maybe the wrong term, but chaotic deities from the original first edition game. We have The Coming Storm, which is an adventure utilizing the HeroQuest Glorantha rule set. And we'll kind of slide that over a little bit. Next to this, we have another book that's set for the Hearts in Glorantha setting, the HeroQuest. That is another one that's no longer in print. And continue on with my theme with, well, let me move this down a little bit. So we're kind of cutting it off. Oops. And up. Come on. Okay, why are we having an issue? There we are. All right. So, the Guide to Glorantha. 2 giant volumes, the history of everything that you would ever want to know about Glorantha and all things Runequest. It does come in an original slipcase, very expensive. I believe it's almost $170, $180. I did pick up a copy of the PDF, and like with Big Rebel, had it printed. They did a wonderful job. It was a lot less expensive than doing it. Not a lot, but a lot less. And I wish in hindsight that, and someday I will go with the slipcase because they really didn't do a good job inside the book. I'm not going to pull it out. It is definitely usable. I can read it. And the primary reason is when I did pick up the PDF, as much as I wanted to, I just couldn't get through something so big in digital form. I'm just not built for that anymore. Unfortunately, my eyes are starting to go south. The glasses do help a bit, but there's no way I can get through something like this without it, being in my lap. We have the fantastic Runequest starter set, which is a logical step if you either A, enjoy this and want to move on to something a little bit more meaty and still aren't ready to invest money in the slipcase, but you can definitely skip the quick start and go to the starter set and still not spend as much money to decide if Runequest is for you. We have the Cults of Prax. This is the original print. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this printing, first edition, second print though, that's not the original cover. Red Book of Magic, and probably one of the most popular Runequest campaigns out there. This is also a Johnstown Compendium print. It highly, if you've done your due diligence and you found that Runequest is for you and you want to actually do a proper campaign, this right here is something that everyone has discovered. Whoever has discovered says, this is the one. This is the one that you should do. Okay, moving on. We'll just kind of push this over here a little bit. Let me see, how are we doing with the frame? Okay, we're all right. So, Warhammer up next. Warhammer, what we have is we have the starter set, we have the core rulebook, we have the GM screen, Enemy in Shadows and the Enemy in Shadows Companion, and a print of the first edition of Warhammer. Warhammer is a setting and a world that I haven't spent a lot of time in until recently, primarily due to the Gotrek and Felix books, and because of it, I have become enamored with this world. It is just as equally rich and evocative as Glorantha in its own special way. And because of that, I picked up there was a bundle of holding which had a lot of the older editions, first edition, second edition books, and I've been spending a lot of time reading those. trying to get through them. They are digital. I still would like to see if I can get those in print, but they're very expensive as far as collector prices are concerned. And then next to these, we have the 13th Age core rulebook itself, which unfortunately, come to find out, is required if you want to run 13th Age Glorantha. The 13th Age Glorantha is not a standalone book, and so it is quite the investment if you decide to roll with that. I mean, I'll be honest, I think that's a bit of BS because the 13th Age Glorantha is bigger than the core rulebook, and I don't see why they couldn't have compressed some rules and put it into that. But, you know, say la vie. All right. And it looks like, yep, as you notice, my shelf is starting to dip here a little bit. Next to that, we have Electric Bastion Land. Here we are with Chris McDowell's entry. And I've read through this a bit. It is a wonderful, you know, it's a take on role-playing. It's something that it may not be for everyone, but something that most everyone can enjoy reading. And if I'm not mistaken, Into the Odd, the second printing should be out. Continuing on, we have Cyberpunk 2020, a reprinting of this game along with the Night City sourcebook. These came out after the issuing of the Cyberpunk Red core rulebook. A lot of my local game stores carry this. I'm fairly certain R. Talsorian decided to reprint a lot of these. Both are wonderful reads, not necessary in order to run the Cyberpunk Red version, simply because the aesthetic, the feel, the rules, most everything within these older books are night and day compared to how things are presented in Cyberpunk Red. So if you're looking for a foundation to build off of, yes, but as far as utilizing these to supplement your current game, you might find it a little bit difficult, in my opinion. All right, let's see here. Continuing on, Faraway Land. This is Dirk Stanley's 5th edition core rulebook. This is an entry of his wonderful fantasy world. Faraway Land, if you didn't know, and can't really tell by the artwork, is pretty much, and I mean, it's so much more than that. I highly recommend getting it. But so to try to keep these videos down to about 10 to 15 minutes a piece, Faraway Land, what if Adventure Time was a role-playing game, but with a lot more information, done slightly better, and a lot more fun to live in. So I'll set that up there. Then we have Barbarians of the Ruined Earth. Whoops, dropped the dice there. Another one by Mike Evans, and this right here is what if Thunder of the Barbarian was a role-playing game and was done fantastically well. This is a joy to run, a joy to play in, and another one that I highly recommend you pick up. And then continuing on, we have the actual Faraway Land core rulebook, utilizing the rules of that Dirk Stanley, created for the original setting. I don't remember what they are. It's been a while. Put that back in here. And we have supplements for this. Actually, no, we don't. This is, okay, so now we jump from Dirk Stanley to Eric Bloat. And this is Eric Bloat. If you don't know him, he is probably best known for this, Dark Places and Demogorgons, which is appropriate for now as far as the filming of this video. Get your Stranger Things on with this game. It is fantastic. It definitely not only evokes the feeling of it, it's written by someone who lived during that time, and it is a love letter, not just to the show, but to that period of time in the 80s, as written and witnessed by someone who lived through it. Put that back in here. Come on. You gonna go? There you go. All right. So we have Vigilante City, which is one of Eric's games that is written for the Supers demographic. This is Santa Muerte setting guide for Dark Places and Demogorgons. What if you wanted to, instead of playing Stranger Things, you wanted to play in Lost Boys? Well, that's what the setting book is for. What are we stuck on? Yeah, kind of pull you out here. Oh, okay. So yeah, as mentioned, things get orphaned and mixed up. Faraway Land, this is a setting guide for Faraway Land. Solar Blades and Cosmic Spells, Diogo Nogueira's Space Opera Entry, one of his earlier ones, an OSR game, which is in itself a wonderful, wonderful game to play. Dark Streets and Darker Secrets. Diogo's entry into urban fantasy, I believe. Kind of maybe urban fantasy, you know, Vampire and the Masquerade type feel to it. Throw you back in here. And then we have some Orphan Gong Farmer's Almanac. Definitely worth the cost if you're into Dungeon Crawl Classics. These books come out once a year. It's a menagerie of adventures, tables, guides, characters, PCs, all things DCC, and available for print at a very, very ridiculously affordable price through Lulu when they do come out. I'll kind of move you over a little bit more. And maybe back a little bit. There we go. And moving on from there, Righteous Blood and Ruthless Blades. This is a Wushu themed RPG, or Wuxia, I'm sorry, and by Osprey Games. Sitting here by its lonesome, we have Dungeoneer. This is the first book for Advanced Fighting Fantasy, the role-playing game that came from the Fighting Fantasy game books. Next to this is one of my favorite RPGs of all time, not just fantasy, but just in general. And it primarily not necessarily has to do with the game itself, but the people that I have been playing with for over 2 years now, I think. And it is just a fantastic world, a fantastic game, a lot of crunch. And if you're willing to do your due diligence and do the hard work to get through it, you'll find no better game if you're looking for something a little bit more crunchy than Dungeon Crawl Classics and don't really want to go through and try to maneuver through a lot of the older D&D first edition and second edition books. Kind of like OSE, not as simple, but is definitely a cleaning up and better organized version of a mixture of first edition and second edition Dungeons and Dragons. And what do we have here at the end? Okay, we have the Traveler Starter Set. The Traveler Starter Set, I opened this up a while ago to read, did a video for it. The video completely floundered and could not get it recovered to make it decent to watch. So put it back on the shelf and completely forgot what I looked through. So I will give you the time of day soon enough. And then next to this at the end of shelf number 2, we have the Alien RPG GM screen, the core rulebook, and the starter set. And what can I say about those? The name should say it all. For those who aren't familiar with it, obviously it's based on the Alien movies, and it is everything that you think it will be as far as a role-playing game is concerned. So there you are. We've come to the end of shelf 2. This one took a little bit longer. There was a little bit more to talk about as the variety kind of changed here. We will be moving on to shelf 3 momentarily, which will probably go quicker because there's not as much to talk about on that one. So we will see you soon. All right, we're back, and welcome to the third shelf of part 1 of my video taking a tour of my bookshelves. Thanking you all for getting me past the 300 subscriber mark for the silly little YouTube channel that I do for fun. So, as you can see, this one should be blatantly obvious. This is, well, kind of a lazy section of my 5th edition books. Some of them are missing because I just recently ran another session of Curse of Strahd for my son and his friends, having a good time doing that. As you can tell, most of the 5e books are here. There might be a couple missing here or there, and honestly, these books are here primarily for my son and his friends to utilize. I don't use them as much. I really haven't run most of these games. I do enjoy 5e. I do think 5e is a fantastic rule set. I do enjoy it for what it's worth. I am not a big fan of the adventures that have come out over time from WotC. Without getting it too much, it has nothing to do with any of the political hoopla and things that people tend to associate with why people like or dislike WotC in its current way. I just don't think their adventures are that good. I just think that they could be better. And so I'm a big fan of third-party 5e stuff, settings, adventures, things that other companies provide, and I think they do a far better job And those are the ones that I tend to focus on, and those are the ones that I enjoy running and playing in for the most part. So as you can see, I'm not going to pull these out, but as you can see, there's they're kind of the standard set of the 5th edition library, along with the old starter set and the essentials kit. Probably the big thing that I really want to put attention to is the Art and Arcana book. This is a history of the art in Dungeons and Dragons from day one up through 5th edition, or right around when 5th edition was created. A lot of the beginning artwork is in there. I don't know when what the cutoff period is as far as, what's within these books. But if you're a history buff, if you're an art fan, and if you're a fan of the RPG history and RPG art, this is definitely a time capsule and a wonderful love note to everything that is Dungeons & Dragons artwork over the years. And we're going to slide over to this one right here. And not going to draw a bunch of attention. I'm not going to pull these out. Sorry. What these are older prints. A lot of these are printed for, I didn't want to take certain books to cons, or didn't want to take certain books to go utilize out at game stores. And for the most part, these are older books that are out of print, that you can no longer purchase, that either picked up on drive-through or through other means. Now we're old ones. None of these are stolen, but whatever's printed on here is owned one way or another. But for the most part, it is things such as, where is it? A good example of what these are. Why I have them is let's see here. Is that it? Nope. Here, yes. I mean, this is a good example of what they are. So this is a print of my PDF of the Field Guide to Hot Springs Island. My players are not going to write in that book. That book is expensive. It is a piece of art, and there's no way I'm going to let them scribble within that book. They can read it, but anything they want to write down, they can write down in this print. And if they fill it up, I can easily get it printed again for use for another set of players if I run this campaign again. So that's what those primarily are. And this one's going to be relatively quick because we're kind of already near the end here. So I'll just slide this over a little bit more. There we are. We'll kind of focus it on here. So as we kind of reach the end of this section, this is the GM screen for Paranoia. Yes, the new version of Paranoia by Mongoose. I like it. I think it's a lot of fun. And it's on another part of the shelf. We have the 5e entry for Glen Seal's The Midlands. As stated, I am always in the market for things I can use for the 5e rule set, but just with better adventures and better settings. And we will focus on Glen's Midlands, in its original form on another shelf. Giant fan. I have pretty much the entire collection, and I love everything that Glen Seal puts out. And he's just a wonderful, wonderful guy. Here we have Aegon. This is the Sword and Sandals RPG based upon the Greek myths. It is not Forged in the Dark, but what's the other one? Excuse me, Powered by the Apocalypse. All right, so Ghoul Island. This is a novel set within the Sandy Peterson's Ghoul Island adventure campaign, I guess, and which utilizes the Sandy Peterson's Cthulhu mythos setting for 5th edition. Once again, another one that utilizes 5e, but just it's a little bit better material and a little better than what WotC's doing. But anyways, and this is probably one of my favorite supplements for 5e by the wonderful Robert Schwab, who in my eyes can do no wrong. The Book of Fiends, a bestiary for 5th edition. These are not your 5e devils. These are not your 5e demons. These are not your 5e absolute evils. These things will eat you up, sip on your soul, and spit out whatever remains. If you're looking for something to make things more evil and interesting in your 5e game and actually make devils scary and make them these horrible monsters who just want to do nothing but evil for everything around them, to supplement their own horrific ways, I can't recommend this more. This is a wonderful addition to any 5e campaign. Let's see here. My printing of the Expanse Abzu's Bounty when I was going to run this campaign, unfortunately never got around to it. The Expanse core rulebook itself. Oh, and this, and likewise this blue thing over here, these are generic GM screens. They allow you to print out inserts and pull them in and out. Wonderful. It's a great way to save money and on these GM screens. I'm a big fan of GM screens. I think they provide a lot of purpose and they're very helpful. But sometimes the information on the ones that you buy don't have everything you need, or they're poorly designed. And this kind of allows you to design your own and put on there what you feel is necessary. And then we've reached the end. So we've got Cyberpunk Jumpstart Kit, little net running deck up here. Oops, there we are. And the Cyberpunk role-playing game of the Jesus, why can't I talk? Cyberpunk Red, the core rulebook. The Jumpstart Kit, unfortunately, is obsolete. The rules in there have changed so much in the core rulebook that as much as I love this starter set, it is probably one of my absolute favorites when it came out. It did a wonderful job of teaching the rules and introducing the Cyberpunk. But those rules changed to the point where unless you want the little standees inside, the freebie dice, the maps, which are still great, and the rules themselves just, they're kind of useless. So I think they tried to correct that in the free RPG Day easy mode, which just came out. So if you're looking to get your feet wet in Cyberpunk, look for an easy mode. And, unless you want the maps, which are great, I don't really recommend getting this anymore. Next to that, we have a couple orphan boxes of the Fantasy Trip. We've got Death Test, Melee, and Wizard by Steve Jackson Games. These were the beginnings of what would be the Fantasy Trip role-playing game, and likewise leading into the larger game itself of GURPS. So yeah, these are another time capsule to the past. If you want to, see the beginnings of, a particular role-playing game and, how things may be different back during the beginnings, these will definitely give you an idea of what it was like. And then finally at the end, we have the field guide to Hot Springs Island and the Dark of Hot Springs Island, which is probably the preeminent hex crawl game currently. There is no better, and I believe there is a second printing coming out, an updated printing. And what is this? And then yes, a map, player's map that you can hand out to your players during your game. So that is the third shelf. That one went so much quicker. There wasn't as much to point out. So we'll take another break here, and we will conclude part 1 of this video by going through shelf number 4 here in just a moment. See you soon. Okay, we are back, and welcome to shelf number 4, part 1 of a 3-part video of a tour of my collection, of my shelves, I guess, as a thank you to those of you who brought this silly little channel above 300 subs. So this one's going to be a little bit awkward. The stand I'm using does not go down that far, so it's going to be kind of a top-down angle. And know that I am on my knees, so you may hear some shuffling in the background as far as my knees will last. So let's get through this. So starting here at the end, we have the Prince Valiant. Whoops, let's see, let me put this front and center. We've got the Prince Valiant storytelling game by Greg Stafford, along with its episode book. This is based upon the Prince Valiant cartoon or comic serials, comic strips. And going forth from there, we have the Never Going Home. This is a World War I in the trenches horror game. It comes highly recommended. I did pick this up for a next to nothing at a sale. Read through some of it. Seems very cool. Would like to get this to the table. Definitely worth checking out. Get back in there. We have here? We have Lex Arcana. What if Rome didn't fall? And mix in certain aspects of mythology, supernatural, and other things to kind of create an alternative Roman universe for you to play in. Another one that comes highly recommended as a rather cool historical setting type role-playing game. Excuse me. In here we have the For Coin and Blood 2nd edition by Alan Barr. A ne'er-do-well fantasy. Scum and Villainy is what I kind of imagine it as. You're not heroes, but scoundrels. Next to that, we have Blades in the Dark. Most everyone should know Blades in the Dark by now. But, not to belittle it, but What If Dishonored was a role-playing game, for the most part. Next to that, we have Masks. Masks, a new generation. This is a superhero game. And this is, what if you played a bunch of teenagers with superpowers, and rather than focus on your superpowers, predominantly, you focused on the teenage angst and the issues that comes with being a superhero. Punk Apocalyptic. This is another entry from Robert Schwab. This is a post-apocalyptic setting based upon his Shadow of the Demon Lord rules, and it is just as rock and roll and punk rock as Shadow of the Demon Lord is, just with more guns, chainsaws, dirt, and grime and filth. So it is a joy to play. It is wonderful. We have my reprinting of the Deluxe Tunnels and Trolls PDF that I have. Primarily got that just to learn more about the game. I don't really know too much about Tunnels and Trolls, but may learn more in the future. And we've got Jackals. Jackals is another Sword and Sandals, Bronze Age fantasy role-playing game. Not Runequest, but along with its campaign entry, The Fall of the Children of Bronze. Then, continuing on, and apologize for the angle again, so hopefully you can see this, we have my Mythras books, Mythic Britain, the Mythras Core Rules, and along with Mythic Babylon. I would like to say that I have read through each one of these beasts. Moving on, we have my small little collection of the James Bond 007 role-playing game. A lot of wonderful things can be said about this game. A lot of historical things can be said about this game. It's a shame that it didn't last as long as it should have, but what it did and what it provided to the role-playing game world, to the RPG world, still can't talk, sorry, is enough can't be said about that. So, we've got a couple adventures here, Dr. No Adventure, the For Your Information Game Master Supplement, the Q Manual. We have, For Your Eyes Only, little adventure there, and then the basic set. Unpunched, mind you. This came still wrapped in plastic. Next to that, we have kind of hidden there the SBI's Dragon Quest. Was it a competition for Dungeons & Dragons? Probably not. Was it a wonderful alternative to D&D when it came out? Absolutely. If you want to see more information about this particular game, PolyKid does a video on this and goes into more detail. And enough said. It's a wonderful old game that is an alternative to D&D. Along with there's the map of it and an adventure. And then this is near and dear to my heart. This is ElfQuest, the official role-playing game, along with the Sea Elves Complete Culture Guide. ElfQuest was a comic book from the late 70s, early 80s that I discovered very young, and it meant a lot to me. I could not get enough of ElfQuest, and when the role-playing game came out, I tried desperately to get my friends to play it. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. They were deeply rooted in everything and anything D&D, and most anything new that I tried to introduce was just kind of pushed to the side, and thus created the wall of why I never really ventured forth into alternative RPGs when I was younger, not because they weren't available, it just there really wasn't many people to play with. So, carrying on. Next to that, we have Chill. Chill is a horror game and a horror RPG. I don't really know if it was direct competition for Call of Cthulhu, but it provided a different pace and a different setting, focusing more on your Hollywood-esque monsters and horrors and kind of Hammer horror type situations and settings. Next to that, we have Gillespie's Barrel Maze, and next to that, we have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Other Strangeness, entry from Palladium. This is another thing that I picked up when I was younger as far as comic books were concerned, and this was one that I got when I was younger and tried to get my friends to play, but unfortunately, nope, it was still strictly D&D. Oop, get off of there. Then we have the Laundry RPG. The Laundry is based off of the Laundry Files novels. An English version of, I don't know, kind of like Men in Black, but dealing with all strangeness, all things. What is the show? Warehouse 1545? Anyways, it is an alternative to Delta Green, but with a lot more humor. A lot more humor involved. And we'll just set that up there. And as you can see down here, we have a standard for every shelf, the Burning Wheel. There's so many people that I know that have this book. They highly recommend it. But there's so few people that I know that have actually read it from cover to cover. So, and that includes me. Next to that, we have the Reincarnated, is it Reincarnated Adventures? Yes. The original Adventures Reincarnated by Goodman Games. And a wonderful alternative set of adventures or campaign for 5th edition rules. If you want your 5e players, if you're looking for something different and you want your 5e players to experience a lot of the older games and you don't want to have to deal with converting them, there you go. There are some classics here: Into the Borderlands, Expedition to Barrier Peaks, Isle of Dread, Castle Amber, and more. Temple of Elemental Evil, which is not on my shelf currently. It's currently being borrowed by someone, but can't recommend them enough. Forbidden Lands, Free League's fantasy RPG. I know it's great. I know a lot of people who live and breathe by Forbidden Lands, and I have played in it. I just don't think I have played in it enough to have an opinion of it. So I'm not going to say anything good or bad about it. It's just my time that I spent, I enjoyed. I have questions, but those questions will remain unanswered until I've got more time. My set of Symbaroum books. Symbaroum is a wonderfully dark, mysterious world, bleak and foggy and horrific and just wonderful. If you're looking to move away from D&D, but you're not ready to move on away from fantasy, and you're looking for something a little bit more edgy, different, those may not be the right terms, but definitely check out Symbaroum. Next to that is my Astonishing Swordmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea Player's Handbook, which is just the player side information. Kind of shoved in here, we have the elusive shift. John Peterson's kind of academic look at the beginnings of RPGs and those who worked and lived within them. If you're interested in that kind of thing, highly recommend it. It's a wonderful read, but know that it can be a bit dry and academic, and if that's not your thing, it may be a tough slog. All right, my knees. Then here we have Bethorm, the Plane of Tecumel. This is Jeff D's version of rules to play within the world of Tecumel. And next to that, we have The Man of Gold, which is M.A.R. Barker's novel in regards to Tecumel. Not the one that we found out that he wrote that utterly destroyed his legacy, unfortunately. We won't go too far from there, but know that strictly Tecumel stuff exists here. And then moving on from there, D101 Games updated version of OpenQuest, another fantasy RPG setting and rules to run your RPG games with. And get back in there. And then here is an older printing. I think this was the first edition, the first printing of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness. This one's a lot older. And then along with that is the GM screen. This is something I may want to start up again. And we'll just back up here as we conclude with shelf 4. Maybe move in. There we are. So, from earlier I mentioned Melee, Death Test, and Wizard. This is the full box set for the Fantasy Trip Legacy Edition, which was what Melee, Wizard, and Death Test eventually became. So many good things in here. So wish I had the time to spend running Fantasy Trip. I may do an individual video of it and go through it and give it some attention that it deserves to see if this may be something that someone else might enjoy and want to look up and see if they can find. And then finally at the end, we have Metamorphosis Alpha, Doom on the Warden, which is Goodman Games adventure that they made for their reissuing and reprinting of Metamorphosis Alpha. This is Epsilon City. I'm not going to get it out because it's nice and secure in the box set, which is which essentially is the setting guide and the setting book for Metamorphosis Alpha. The core rule book is somewhere on another shelf. I am sure we will see it. So there you go. That is the end of shelf 4 and the conclusion of part 1 of my 3-part series of going through my shelves and my collection. And once again, I will end with a thank you one more time for everyone here who enjoys these stupid little videos that I do for fun. Thank you for getting me above 300. And I look forward to making part 2 as we move on to the other side of the shelf and we get into a lot more of the eclectic and more randomness that is the other side of the shelf. So, thank you all. Have a wonderful day, and we will talk to you again real soon.